more and more excitement is rolling out of the Chicago Bears optional offseason program with everybody showing up there. We're going to talk a little bit about that, plus dive a little bit into the draft conversation as well. We're going to get to all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Darrett Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And everything's coming together for the Chicago Bears in this offseason program. Seems like everybody's really starting to understand their roles, the scheme, and it seems to be a really some big excitement over especially the defensive scheme with the Bears, right? We talked about, already how Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker are going to be used in the scheme. Well, it seems like Jaylon Johnson is going to be an extremely valuable part of the scheme as well under Dennis Allen, which I think is really big when it comes down to it, right? Dennis Allen, he has another defensive coordinator. It is what it is when it comes down to it. But this is a place that Jaylon Johnson has been in before, right? He's been a guy that's had to figure out how to play under different defensive coordinators and things like that. The Bears over the last couple of years have used a cover 3 defensive scheme, right? And it's zone coverage. It has 3 players deep when it comes down to it. And Jaylon Johnson's been a really big, important part of that because he can basically shut down a whole side of the field, right? With Dennis Allen now coming in and the way that he's used the Saints use zone coverages like most teams do in the NFL, but it's a lot more man coverage, right? And if you guys have been following us here at Chicago Bears Central for a while, we've been talking about the fact that the Bears, they have more than enough talent to play more man-style coverage in that secondary, right? The Saints ran a cover 1 man coverage there, and they did that 26% of the defensive snaps, right? They had one safety located in the middle of the field on those 26% of snaps, right? The Bears used the cover 1 last year 15% of the time, which was the 4th fewest in the NFL. So it's going to be a nice change of how the personnel is used here with Dennis Allen and under that scheme, right? And that's what it comes down to. Jaylon Johnson talked about the scheme and talked about where he's going to be used, where he's best at. He said this: you lock up the number one guy, number one on number one. For me, that's what I'm looking forward to doing. That's what I look forward to the most. That's what I am trained for. That's what I work hard for. For me, it's just going to be about being ready to go out there and lock up, challenge guys, make things hard on the offense, mess them up. Then the dogs up front, they have to eat. Everybody just does what they do best. Dogs eat, and then guys on the back end, we cover, right? And we talked a lot here. I've talked a lot here about the importance of the synergistic relationship between the pass coverage and the pass rush, right? Those are things that go hand in hand when it comes down to it. And so when you look at Jaylon Johnson and how important he's going to be now that the Bears are going to run a man a lot more than what they do. They're still going to run zone like most teams do in the NFL, but we're going to have a lot more of the man-to-man opportunities, and that's where Jaylon Johnson really can shine when it comes down to it, right? You look at Jaylon Johnson in 2023, he allowed a 33.3 passer rating, right, which is the third largest mark by a cornerback with at least 500 snaps. That's what he can do. That's what Jaylon Johnson brings to the table, right? And when you look at the cornerbacks as far as the less targeted, right, Jaylon Johnson was 13th, right? And he was targeted the second lowest times, 51, only behind Sauce Gardner at 47 targets, right? So that means that teams are not trying to test what Jaylon Johnson could do because they understand how much of a weapon he is. You now move that to being a man coverage more so than the zone coverage in which you can switch things around. That's going to be really good. So we already have seen opponents reluctant to throw to Jaylon Johnson, and that's without having a pass rush like hopefully the Bears are going to have when it comes down to it. Opposing offenses respect Jaylon Johnson, and now in having guys like him, how Kyler Gordon's going to be used, having Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker as far as the flexibility that they have between being in the box and outside the box. This is all things that are really going to be important to it, right? Now, you also have to look at Tyreek Stevenson. This puts even more onus on Tyreek Stevenson. He was targeted 81 times last season. That was after 110 times during his rookie year, right? So, because Tyreek Stevenson is going to be playing more press coverage where he can really utilize his physicality, that's going to help also put him in a better situation theoretically as well. So, again, hearing this, and I know this is kind of football X's and O's for the people, who just want to come in and talk about the game and things like that, but this is really everything that we've heard from when you go pair this with what we heard from Jaquan as far as using, 6 to 7 defensive backs out there sometimes, right? Then when we know how he's going to use Kyler Gordon, now we're hearing the plan for Jaylon Johnson as well. That's going to be even better for what this team's doing. And again, that goes back to building your system and your scheme around the talent pool that you have, more so than just making them fit a predetermined scheme and system. And that's what it seems like we're going to do on the offensive side. That's also what it seems like we're going to do on the defensive side of the ball as well. And the new additions are going to be really important to that also, right? And Jaylon Johnson did talk about those new additions on the defensive side of the ball, saying this: Grady's been playing this game at a high level for a long time. I've always been a big fan of his game when he was in Atlanta. So definitely getting a dog like that up front is going to help me out on the back end. And I know I'm going to be going to cause some havoc too in the run game. Pairing him with Andrew Billings, I think will be a sight to see for sure. And then Deo, I think him seeing how aggressive he is off the edge and how disruptive he is, he can definitely help us on defense. You're seeing everything come together, right? That's what that is, right? So you look at that what we have up front now: Montez Sweat, Andrew Billings, Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Deo Odeyingbo, Austin Booker, who's hopefully going to take another step up, Daniel Hardy as well, right? And we're probably still going to add maybe another defensive tackle here in the draft as well, right? And already hearing how that's going to help your defensive backs, that's a system. That's a scheme. That's how things are working in tandem, right? And that's what the Bears have not really had for a couple of years. And so you're going to want to see all of that. And I think that's a really important part of bringing this whole thing together for the Chicago Bears this year, to where those expectations, well, the hope that we have for the expectations, start looking much better for the Chicago Bears than what we've seen before. So we'll see how all that comes together. Overall, really excited about it. I think that the Bears are in a really good spot to where that talent is starting to come together. You can start seeing how the scheme is going to utilize that talent better than what it was used in prior years. And hopefully that leads to success for the Chicago Bears on both sides of the ball. And for what that's worth, let's switch to offense for a second. Caleb Williams continues to talk about how eager he is to play for Ben Johnson, right? He said this: us growing together is key. Starting now and pushing me is key. I know that, and he knows that as well, right? And so to continue, if you have that position right, it helps with a bunch of things. Talking about the coaching position. Building that bond with Johnson, pushing me, and us growing together for years to come is going to be fun. I can't wait. And to be able to help me learn more about ball, because he's super smart and super sharp. Again, having a head coach and a quarterback, right? Caleb Williams is going to his second year. Ben Johnson's a rookie head coach at this point in time, right? Having those guys grow together and the mind, and again, you want your quarterback to be an extension of your head coach. That's what the best teams in the league look like, right? When you have a great quarterback, what they are an extension of the coach. That relationship is one that's unbreakable, right? And so you want to see that when it comes down to it as well here with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. And everything that we've heard from Ryan Poles to Ben Johnson, to how everybody's talked about Caleb, they're going to make sure that he's put in a position where he's forced to grow. We've talked about him being more under center. He didn't do that a whole lot last year. Almost everything that we did was exclusively from the shotgun. And that's going to be a big challenge for Caleb, but it's one that he's ready for, right? That's what, if he's not ready for it, then you got the wrong guy. That's just period, point blank. And so helping that learning curve for Caleb is going to be really important, but having better protection from him up front is going to be hugely important as well, especially if you want to be able to be under center more. You're going to have that front line that's ready, willing, able to go. The Bears went out and got Dahlman. They went out and got Tooney. They went and got Jonah Jackson, right? They went out and got improvements with young players, but let's not overlook. A lot's been made about how Braxton Jones, if he's going to start, needs to improve. Let's also talk about Darnell Wright, right? Because Darnell Wright is a guy that, listen, he's shown so much promise, but let's not act like he doesn't still have things that he can grow on. Now, he hasn't been on the best offensive lines in his career, which I'm sure is added to that. Having veterans now there and productive veterans still that understand the game is going to be really important for him as well. But people, of course, have compared him to Penei Sewell, right? And to say that's a guy that Darnell Wright kind of needs to have that type of leap when it comes down to it. And Ben Johnson knows a good rag tackle when he sees it because he coached Sewell and how he helped protect Jared Goff's right side, right? So when you look at it, Sewell, for example, since he was drafted in 2021, he's been one of the best offensive linemen, period, in football, right? When you look at it, he's played 4,503 offensive snaps and has only missed one game, right, over the course of his career. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what Darnell Wright needs to be. I would love for it to be, right? But Sewell has been so good on that right side and so consistent, and you need that, right? And that's the thing that you see. Ben Johnson actually talked about Darnell Wright, and he said this: I see Darnell Wright very much in the same mode as Sewell, and we tried to do things the last 3 years in Detroit to highlight Sewell in space, highlight him in one-on-one blocks, him against the defensive lineman. I see the same thing for Darnell. What have I been telling you guys? The vision that Ben Johnson has for the players that he wants to use on this one. You look at Sewell, right? 6'5", 335 pounds. Darnell Wright, 6'6", 333 pounds, right? So there's a lot when it comes down to that into it. And Darnell Wright talked about what's coming for him this season as well. He says, I'm happy. I'm fortunate that they think highly of me, and hopefully I can live up to that. He has a really, really good player, and I try to emulate some of his stuff. He's good, so I hope I can live up to that. Darnell Wright is going to be a key thing in this whole thing that goes for the Chicago Bears. And that's not to say that maybe Braxton can't or whatever else it comes down to, but Darnell has to come in here, and now the standard has changed. So for you to show out and show up for this offensive line, the standard, the business is up now, right? The offensive line is up, and you got to find your place in that, right? And, Darnell Wright has already talked about, getting things together. He said this: him being one of the greater players as far as the offensive line in the game today, I watch him all the time. His body type, I feel like, is similar to mine. Then being in the same conference, his tape comes up always. I'm always watching him, try to emulate some of the things he does. Obviously, you can't emulate everything. Some people are just different. Some people have different talents, but I do watch him. Darnell Wright has been solid enough, right? He's allowed 13 sacks through 2 seasons, which, again, I think that you got to look at the overall performance of that offensive line, but Darnell Wright needs to be better than that, right? When you look at it as well, like the amount of pressures, he had 51 pressures in his rookie year, down to 30 in 2024. That's a pretty good thing to come to, right? A former number 10 pick as well, right? So Darnell Wright has to come in here, and now it's time to stand up. Dan Rouchar, who is our offensive line coach, is going to be really pivotal to the development of a guy like Darnell Wright, and I think that he's ready for that. This is year 3 is a big year for Darnell Wright. And when you come off of that, right, and him going into year 4 next season, this is where you want to start getting things together. And he's already built a relationship with Dan Rouchar as well, where Darnell Wright said this: we talk a lot. He and I talk a lot. The thing I'm excited about with him is just the way he inspires me, not a leap of faith, but not to be afraid to fail. We talk a lot, so it'll be great. 23 years old. That's what Darnell Wright is. He's 23 years old. But the expectations are there, and it's up to him to grab the reins of that and own it. And hopefully that he can. A Darnell Wright that comes into this season and takes another step up, right? Him, Javon Dexter, these are 2 guys in the trenches that we're looking to take big steps up again this year. And I think that Darnell Wright is prepared to do that. I'm not saying that Darnell Wright all of a sudden has to become one of the best tackles in the game of football here in year 3, but you do want to start seeing signs of that. That's what it comes down to it, right? And I think that that's the overarching thing here, is that if you can get those signs of greatness from Darnell Wright, right? Because you want to see that a little bit. That's the thing that's going to really make this special for the Chicago Bears. And we'll see what happens here, man. So, we'll see. Overall, again, this has been a really fun period to hear football talk, right? I love hearing actual how things football-wise are going to work. All the speculation of draft this, draft that, it's all great. But when it comes down to the of things actually working, the keys in the cog and how football gets done, that's where I get the most excited about this team at. That's where I get most excited about hearing this new coaching staff, because on the offense and defensive side, we're actually bringing creativity. And in bringing that creativity, that's where you have the potential of really developing something special. And that's what I think the Bears are trying to do here. They're trying to figure out which one of these players can be really special for this team? Which of these players that are here currently in this building are the players that you're going to be able to build and use as your foundation to build something solid around for years and years to come? It's not just about 2025. Make no mistake about it. 2025 is still a really important year, and this is the year that the Bears can go from being the team that has some talent on it to being a team that's actually realizing that talent to get wins in a difficult conference in the NFC North and in the NFL overall. And let's hope that we're getting ready to see that, man. But like I've said many times, this period right now is one of the most exciting ones for me until pads get on, because we're hearing football things, not just speculation, not just rumors. We're hearing football shit. And that's what I got into this for. I got into this to talk football. Talking storylines is things that we all going to do. It needs to happen. Storylines matter as well for the entertainment purposes and just knowing what's going on with your team. But one thing that I'm the most excited about is X's and O's football and hearing how these guys are going to be used, because that's also how you can hold them to a standard, right? As you can see, that's one of the things that you're going to be able to tell right away, the difference between this Bears team and this coaching staff between what we had before, the utilization of the players. So hearing things like, Dan Rouchar is already working with Darnell Wright. They're talking every day, getting him together. Hearing that Dennis Allen and how he plans to incorporate more man, which is something we at Chicago Bears Central has been calling a lot for years, is to go to a more man system and to use that more frequently. All those things happening. Let's see if they're going to actually equate to success on the football field. Let's hope so. But one of the positions the Bears may address in the draft is the defensive tackle position. And I want to talk about today a little bit about some of the best defensive tackles on the board for the Chicago Bears, and we're going to get into that. So first one, of course, is Mason Graham. I think that's you can't take away. Mason Graham is the number one defensive guy on the board here. And with the Chicago Bears, also potentially looking at reportedly talking about him and things like that, it could open the door to him being a guy here for the Chicago Bears. Like what he brings for this team potentially to elevate the defensive line. And even if he does have to come off the bench initially, that's adding amazing depth for you. Now, the problem is that it seems like he's probably going to go in the top 6 to 7, right? Now, if he gets past number 7, that's where it's going to look pretty good that he can fall to the Bears at number 10, and the Bears would have a difficult conversation to ask themselves. But that's something that's up there, right? So if he gets past number 7, watch out for that. But let's switch to one of the guys that are also that was on his team. Kenneth Grant is another great option here for the Chicago Bears. Now, he's not going to be available in the second round, so that would mean that the Bears are trading back, potentially getting more assets if Kenneth Grant is on their depth chart. The guy's an absolute chaos creator on that defensive line, and a guy that especially you're looking at playing behind Grady, Jarrett, Andrew Billings, and learning behind those guys. That's going to really bode well for him in a future front line of Kenneth Grant and Javon Dexter. That can wreak havoc. And the good thing about Kenneth Grant as well is he's really good at not only in pass defense, right, the pass rush, but also in the run game as well, getting up there and being a run stopper on defense. Really like him. Now let's get into the guys that the Bears could potentially get into the second round. Derek Harmon out of Oregon, right? This is a guy that could go potentially late first round, but he could fall to day 2. And if he falls to day 2, he's going to be taken off the board very early. You look at what he did for the Oregon Ducks last year, the most pressure by a defensive tackle at 55, and he had the second best pressure rate as well of any defensive tackle at 10.7%. And so if the Bears if he falls there into the early part of the second round and he's there on the board for the Bears, he's going to be a player that's going to be very tough to pass up in Derek Harmon. I like his skill set a lot. I like his game a whole lot when it comes down to the next level. Next up, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. This is a guy that's probably going to be there early day 2 as well. He's a really good pass rusher. He has a really high ceiling, right? And he's the type of guy that you look at and you're like, hey, the floor is high. The ceiling is extremely high as well. He can end up being a depth guy. He can end up being a starter for you as soon as in year 2 or 3, just depending on what we have here. But this guy and his ceiling, it's kind of almost like how we viewed Austin Booker last year. As a guy that had he has the fundamentals down. You just want him to work on some of the technique. But Walter Nolan, the ceiling is through the roof for him at Ole Miss. Go and check him out if you haven't. Last guy on the list, and a guy that definitely would be there for the Bears if they want to get a guy that has tremendous upside. That's Darius Alexander out of Toledo, right? He's out of the MAC, right? He's a guy that is a disruptive pass rusher. He's really good in the run game as well. He's going to go in the second round, no question about that. So he's there. He's going to be there in the second round, and this could be one of the better upside picks for the Chicago Bears in this draft as well, and a guy that not a lot of people have talked about, right? I know defensive tackle isn't talked about a lot for the Chicago Bears, mainly because of, we've got Grady, Jarrett in here. Andrew Billings is coming back. We got Trevon Dexter. We still don't know what Zach Pickens is going to bring, if he brings anything, but Darius Alexander is an absolute dog as well, and somebody I would love to have on this. He's proven that he can play against some of the better teams in college football, and I think that this guy can end up being one of the steals of the draft when it's all said and done. So another guy that I really do love here for the Chicago Bears if they do go defensive tackle and want to address it here in this draft. But let me know any guys that could be on your board. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearscentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. That's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.